My thanks to Nick and the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries. The SOA is excited about embarking on this joint venture with your organization. Now I'd like to turn to you, our members and guests, to say thank you to all of you. Thank you for providing me one of the greatest experiences of my professional life. I've thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to serve as the SOA president this last year. At last year's annual meeting, I listed 5 primary areas where I wanted to focus my efforts as president: maintaining the value of our credential, supporting our members in international markets and enhancing the global reputation of our organization, expanding the breadth of work performed by actuaries, strengthening SOA relationships with other actuarial organizations, and encouraging diversity within our profession. These areas are all part of the 2017 to 2021 SOA strategic plan. This past weekend, the SOA Board of Directors approved this plan, which outlines the SOA mission and vision for how we will move forward to advance the actuarial profession in our organization. It identifies the core stakeholders, strategies, and required organizational capabilities. During this conference, I encourage you to visit the SOA kiosk, which explores the strategy map in further detail. Now I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about the work accomplished in these areas and the work that remains to be done. First, I'll discuss some of our efforts to maintain the value of the credential, which I know is of importance to all of us. You put in a lot of effort to get your designation, and you want it to mean something. The board recognizes this, and this idea is central to every SOA board decision. Our stakeholders believe in the unsurpassed rigor and relevance of our examination process, which is at the root of the value of our credentials. Based on a recommendation of the Learning Strategy Task Force, we announced a number of changes to the ASA curriculum this year, including 2 new exam components related to predictive analytics. We did not make this decision lightly. It may increase travel time for our candidates. However, we have consistent feedback from employers and members that this is a growing field with huge potential for application to actuarial work for both new and existing markets. It's a perfect example of a change we need to ensure our credential continues to be viewed as relevant and valuable. In addition, 80% of our members and 72% of candidates found these changes favorable. A healthy majority of members and candidates supported these changes, even if it means an increase in travel time. Besides these changes, we've added content related to short-term insurance coverages, predominantly health and non-life, to bring them more in balance with our current long-term coverages, predominantly life and pension. This is consistent with the belief of the SOA board that the ASA should represent a solid grounding in all areas of actuarial practice. International efforts are increasingly important for the SOA. 15% of our members and 22% of our candidates are now based outside of North America. We have an obligation to meet their needs. Further, promoting the value, portability, and recognition of the FSA, ASA, and CERA outside North America makes them more valuable to members in the US and Canada who may work in companies with operations outside of North America. In recognition of this, we formed 2 international subcommittees, a China committee and a Greater Asia committee. These groups advise the International Committee and the board on strategies for continued relevance and success of our organization in China and Greater Asia. One outgrowth of this effort was our decision to open our first office in mainland China. The SOA Beijing office officially opened in the spring of 2016. Together with our staff in the US and Canada, the Hong Kong and Beijing staff are helping improve relationships with local actuarial organizations and arranging professional development and networking events and helping to identify topics for locally relevant research. On a related front, we're proud to have hosted the first executive training exchange program earlier this year with the China Association of Actuaries. CAA members and staff participated in a variety of meetings over 2 weeks in New York, Connecticut, and Washington, D.C. As part of the exchange program, the SOA arranged meetings and presentations with actuarial employers, government agencies, and other organizations. The SOA is eagerly anticipating the opportunity to send SOA members to China for a reciprocal program in 2017. Furthermore, I served on a task force to develop a strategy for Latin America, where we are working with local stakeholders to provide continuing education and to improve awareness of the actuarial profession. Global recognition of the SOA brand and designations makes them more valuable to our members overall. Meanwhile, SOA volunteers and staff are working hard to create more opportunities for members and candidates. Our Cultivate Opportunities team has worked tirelessly in the past year to provide more opportunities for actuaries, particularly in the area of predictive analytics. Over the past 2 summers, we've placed a total of 10 actuarial candidates as interns in companies that had never hired actuaries before, including NASA, Medtronic, Horizon Pharma, and Microsoft. These interns have represented themselves and the profession well, and most of these employers have indicated interest in hiring actuaries on a more permanent basis. In the meantime, we've also run a broad advertising campaign in trade press to increase awareness of what actuaries can do in data analytics in markets where actuaries do not currently have a broad footprint. Increasing opportunities for actuaries to work in other countries, in other fields, and for other employers is one of the best ways to enhance the value of the SOA designations. Let's turn now to talk about our relationships with other actuarial organizations. Over the past 2 years, I met with many members and employers. Through this, I learned how important this topic is to you, and the board has dedicated a great deal of time and energy to our relationships. Many of you know that there have been some struggles in recent years between the activities and goals of the CAS, the Academy, and the SOA. Members have told me these disagreements were neither productive nor becoming of the actuarial profession. I agree that public disagreements rarely make us look good and can create market confusion. But sometimes such conflict is inevitable when multiple organizations with differing strategies and goals exist. I'm pleased to say, though, today that relationships have materially improved between the organizations. It's been an area of significant focus by the leadership of all of the North American organizations. In particular, I'd like to thank my counterparts, Steve Lowe of the CAS and Tom Wildsmith of the Academy, for their consistent efforts to engage in regular communication and work together to strengthen the profession. It's impossible to agree on everything. However, we have proven it is entirely possible to work productively on our shared goals. Regular contact and communication are the foundations of any relationship. We took advantage of meetings at the North American Actuarial Council, the International Actuarial Association, and each of the organization's respective annual meetings to engage in one-on-one dialogue. I'd also like to thank the leaders of the ASPA College of Pension Actuaries, the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, and the Conference of Consulting Actuaries for encouraging us in these efforts. Throughout my travels this year, members have asked, why can't the organizations just agree to divide up what we do? The notion seems simple enough, but reality is much more complicated. First, even nonprofits are subject to antitrust law. As a profession, we cannot engage in activities that could be considered a division of markets. Second, the lines overlap. Traditionally, the Academy focuses their efforts on professionalism and public policy, while the SOA focuses on education and research. But what about education on professionalism, or research on public policy? What about climate change, data analytics, workers' compensation insurance? Arguably, all of these fall in the wheelhouse of more than one organization. Which is why my third point, and arguably the most important one to remember, is that the organizations have different missions and visions. So knowing that there are legal constraints, lines overlap, and each has an important different mission and vision, how do the organizations work together in this environment to the advantage of the entire profession? As an example, how should we respond to requests from some members who argue that the SOA should only do public policy research on behalf of and at the request of the Academy? We start by looking at the mission and vision of each organization. The SOA and the Academy have different research objectives and different editorial standards. One is not better than the other. They're a product of each organization's unique mission and vision. These differences allow important, relevant, and high-quality research to see the light of day. The Academy wants its research and publications to stand as objective statements of the profession. SOA research, on the other hand, often addresses topics where there is no professional consensus. SOA research will sometimes be exploratory, and it represents the views of the authors rather than the views of the organization or the profession. This is acceptable and appropriate as long as the work is technically accurate and well written. It's these differences in our mission, vision, and publication procedures which make it difficult and in some cases unwise to attempt to publish papers jointly. If we only publish papers jointly, much valuable research would never be published, which would be the detriment of our profession. Our experience this year with the former Pension Finance Task Force of the SOA and Academy is one important example of the challenges of working with other organizations. Some of you may have heard of this story and the associated negative publicity for the profession, including stories in the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, and the New York Times. To sum up this project, the task force produced a paper on the principles of financial economics applied to pension plans. The task force wanted to publish the paper, but the authors and editors were not able to agree on edits. Both the SOA and the Academy were motivated not by a desire to stifle debate and research, but rather by a common goal of making the paper better adhere to our rigorous publishing standards. Eventually, it became clear that not publishing the paper was resulting in unfair reputational damage to our profession, and the SOA decided to publish the paper as is, with appropriate disclaiming language to make sure that the paper was not edited or endorsed by either the Academy or the SOA. Because of the work we've done to improve our relationship with the Academy, they understood our decision to publish, even though they didn't agree with the decision. What did the SOA learn? First, good research is always worth doing, even on controversial topics. Second, we must continue to communicate and clarify intellectual property ownership with committees and task forces and how it impacts their work. Third, where two different organizations with different missions intersect and joint publications are planned, we need to clarify the goals up front and communicate these goals clearly to the volunteers and each organization's leadership. Communicate often, as these projects can be longer term and leadership changes. Now I'd like to shift gears and talk about another important topic, diversity and inclusion. This was an important plank in my campaign platform and has been a significant activity during my presidency. I'll begin with the unequivocal statement that the SOA has no interest in implementing quotas or changing the rigor or objectivity of our examination and assessment process. The SOA board believes this is critical to maintaining the value of our credentials. This will not change. But there are three primary reasons why you should care about inclusion and diversity. First, it's the right thing to do. We have a fantastic profession. We're paid well for doing work that is interesting, challenging, and important. Everyone deserves a chance at this profession. To give everyone that chance, we need to increase awareness of the profession and help underrepresented groups feel welcome to join it. For those who are on the pathway, they also need to feel welcome enough to stay in the profession. And for those who stay in the profession, they need to feel that their ideas are welcome. Second, there's strong evidence that diverse groups and teams are far more efficient and more effective than groups and teams that are not diverse. Study after study shows hard data supporting the fact that diversity and inclusion is good for business. Companies with diverse leadership demonstrate higher than average return on equity and better than average growth. For these reasons and others, we hear from actuarial employers that diversity matters to them. They've asked for our help to attract more diverse candidates to the profession. So what's our bottom line? Again, increasing the value of our designations. Third, we want to bring the best and brightest candidates into the profession. If our profession is not welcoming to other groups, we're potentially leaving behind talented people who might well be great actuaries. We can't afford to do that. We must reach out and welcome different groups. It's not enough to be objective, though we will be objective. It's not enough to be a meritocracy, though we will be a meritocracy. We must actively attract and retain great talent and make all those who are interested and qualified feel welcome. During this past year, I have not encountered anyone opposed to diversity, yet some were opposed to me talking about it or working on it in this way. I've been told that being race blind and color blind is enough. I disagree. We need only look at the census data. African Americans and Latinos each represent about 2% of our profession in the US, which is less than 1/6 of their representation in the general population. Native Americans are around 1% of the US population, yet they have almost no representation in the profession. And this is more than just a pipeline issue. STEM graduates are 6% African American and also 6% Latino. We're not even getting our share of the pipeline. On the gender front, while we still have work to do, women make up a much larger percentage of actuaries than their share in many other STEM professions. So while there's more work to be done, other professions may have something to learn from us. What are we doing to make a difference? First, we established a standing committee of the board to make sure that diversity and inclusion gets the attention it deserves. We developed an official statement on diversity, which if you'll bear with me, I'd like to read to you now. The SOA best fulfills its mission when it is diverse and inclusive of all individuals. Openness to diverse perspectives, cultures, and backgrounds helps to attract the best talent and ensures the overall inclusivity of the actuarial profession. The SOA welcomes the membership and participation of all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, age, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, disability, or national origin. Keep your eyes open for that statement. You should expect to see it a lot more as a symbol of our organizational commitment to this important goal. Next, we commissioned a joint study together with the CAS, the International Association of Black Actuaries, and the Actuarial Foundation on the barriers to entry for the profession. This study will examine why underrepresented minorities do not enter the profession at the rates of other groups. Once we find the answers, we'll define a path for how to best address the problems. We're also asking members to specify their enhanced demographics, including race and ethnicity, as part of their member profile. While voluntary and confidential, this data will allow us to create a benchmark which is vital to tracking our progress. If you haven't done this already, please log into your MySOA account and add in your demographic information. Your response will be confidential, and it will help us as a profession to do the right thing. We're also increasing our efforts to attract diverse speakers to our meetings and authors for our publications, as well as providing sessions and articles on diversity and inclusion related topics to increase awareness and demonstrate our commitment. And we'll continue to provide support to the CAS and SOA Joint Committee on Career Encouragement and Actuarial Diversity, as well as the Actuarial Foundation as they also work to address these issues. I appreciate the support of our President-elect, Jerry Brown, in this issue. He's indicated that diversity and inclusion are important priorities for him as well. I hope to continue to serve on the Inclusion and Diversity Committee, and I look forward to continuing to build on our dialogue and success over the last couple of years. So let's come back to one of the issues we started with. What gives our designations value? To me, the key is that they allow us to work. If our members are denied the right to work because of characteristics unrelated to their talent, knowledge, or competence, we need to stand up for them. This is fundamental to our obligation to protect our members and the value of our designations. Sometimes this means we have to take controversial stands. This year, the SOA board asked me to put my signature on a joint letter calling on the governor of North Carolina to repeal North Carolina House Bill number 2. The letter was also signed by a number of the largest US actuarial employers, as well as a variety of professional associations. The bill removed non-discrimination protections for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals that previously existed. Many people spoke to me afterwards and indicated that they did not like HB 2. However, they would have been happier to see me sign this letter as an individual, not as president of the SOA. The board felt that because member rights are at stake, this action was appropriate. This is an example of walking the talk. If we want to be a diverse organization, we need to show members that we have their backs, and North Carolina presented an opportunity to demonstrate that support. After announcing our signing of this letter, I received a great many emails and phone calls. Among them were a number of LGBT members and candidates who said this decision made them feel more welcome in the profession. More than once, these members and candidates, as well as some who did not identify as LGBT, said, "Today, I'm even more proud to be a member of the SOA." This is what it's all about. The board did not take this decision lightly either. I don't expect that we'll often sign such letters or otherwise take a public stand on a legislative issue. But doing the right thing can be difficult. It sometimes means taking actions that make some of us uncomfortable. An actuary should be judged by his or her ability to do the work and by the value of the associated credentials and by nothing else. In closing, I'm grateful for the opportunity to have served as your SOA president. The experience has provided variety, challenge, and growth to me. I've made many new friends and deepened extant friendships, and I've had the opportunity to travel the world. The job has made me a better person and a better actuary. I also believe that in some small way, I've helped make the profession stronger and made the SOA a better organization. I invite you to make your own judgment on that, but please continue to reach out to me to let me know your thoughts as you have during my presidency at listening tour events, Candidate Connect events, SOA meetings, actuarial club meetings, and through email and phone calls. The SOA is a volunteer-driven organization, relying on the efforts of more than 3,000 member and candidate volunteers. Not all of you will get or want the opportunity to be president, but you can get some of the same benefits that I've received through your own volunteer efforts. Please take advantage of these opportunities. Thank you for electing me, thank you for your support, and thank you for your time today.